My name is Joel McLeod,
I'm Roland Tanner.
and welcome to the last episode of 2022 for the 905er podcast with the 905 Roundup. Uh, as is turning into a tradition on around these parts, as the end of the year, of course, we're going to take a look back at the year that was and kind of our greatest hits, at least how we see it. And then we thought we'd change it up a little bit and kind of say what we think 2023 is going to be the main story, the main thing that we're all going to be talking about in the 905. Roland, what was your top hit, your greatest hit for the last year?
It's a couple, I guess, and I think maybe the first one, in terms of stories that we at the 905 have kind of felt that we were not part of, but we're reporting on as part of the community of other podcasts and blogs and whatever. In particular, the kind of the Hamilton election was one that that we both felt was pretty darn important, and that Hamilton did see a change election. It did see a major change in the councillors at City Hall, a brand new mayor, and a very, very close and ultimately very interesting race. It looked at some points like it wasn't going to be particularly interesting, but it turned out to be a real kind of humdinger in a way that really there wasn't anywhere else, with the possible exception of Vaughan. But even that was, Vaughan wasn't really ultimately a change election because the status quo kind of won, albeit it's in the form of a new mayor. In Hamilton, it was a change election. This is a very different council. We're already seeing that in some of their actions and some of the ways they act. We were just talking before we came on about why is that? Why was it? Is that just luck? Is that whatever? It's like, well,
no.
Do you think? Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element that Hamilton has a community of new media coverage now, and and it's early days. I'm not gonna claim that the Spectator still doesn't have massively more influence, but when you look at, there's us, the 905, there's the O Show, there's Joey Coleman, there's Catch Hamilton that's been around for quite a few years. All those entities were covering the election in different ways and kind of highlighting the deficiencies of some members of the old council in a way that I don't think has happened before, and I think that certainly contributed. I mean, yeah.
Well, I would say that. I mean, I remember when you and I kind of had a sit down strategy meeting when we're heading into the municipal election. We said, how do we want to focus our very limited resources and our attention? And we thought, oh man, Hamilton's going to be a write-off. Hamilton's going to be, we thought there was going to be this big change, and we thought, nothing's going to happen of it. It turns out we were very much wrong, big time. My analysis is that I'm not going to say it's entirely our fault. I'm not that hubristic, but I think definitely we played a part, if not a small part, in it. Just the dialogue on the various issues that people were concerned about. Whether it was the grassroots social organizations, that kind of thing. The issue of sprawl and urban boundaries, the issue of talking about Coots Paradise and the leak, just there's so many issues, and the general sense of the old council was ignoring the very valid concerns of Hamiltonians, and the fact that for so many decades Hamilton was kind of viewed as this kind of it's a city that could have been. And it was kind of, I don't know about you, but I got the sense through the course of the election, the course of the year, and talking to people about these issues, that the people were kind of fed up with just that status quo happening. There were people who said, no, we don't want to be this city that could have been. We want the city that is. We want to change the city for the better. and they went, and a lot of those people kind of went to, I thought, jumped into the race and said, no, I'm done sitting on the sidelines, and I'm going to get my head in the game, and I'm going to see if I can make a go of it. The next 4 years, I think, will be interesting to see how Hamilton interacts with the province. We've already seen that the province is very much, I think, antithetical to a lot of what this council is hoping to accomplish. We already saw that despite the last good thing that the previous council did with maintaining the urban boundary where it is, the status quo in that, and saying we're going to focus on intensification in the downtown area, which is badly needed. The province said, nope, we're overturning that. You're going to go into the white belt and possibly even continue past that into the green belt to build this in complete violation or a complete opposition to the will of the people. How is that relationship going to pan out over the next 4 years? We'll wait and see. But I think Hamilton is, you're right, though. There's this new media is here that we're going to be able to kind of keep our eye on it and keep a finger on that pulse a lot better than kind of the traditional legacy media has been. That's kind of why we started the podcast, is that that legacy media, the Toronto Star, Global Mail, and National Post, they've ignored this region for so long. And perfect example, you and I just mentioned this to you before we hit record. During the election, Robert Benzies of the Toronto Star said, "Oh, Brampton is the race to watch. That's the most exciting race out there." Brampton was called within a half hour, people, on election night. There was no contest there. You and I,
we both, and here I will put up my hand and absolutely brag and say, we called that a long
yeah.
No, that is not the race you want to be watching. That's a non-race.
It's
Brampton
a non-starter.
Brampton is not happening. Brown is going to win. It's tragic and it's horrendous that he would just walk straight back into City Hall, but that was obviously going to happen. So yeah, it's strange but indicative that a really good journalist like Robert Benzie, someone I've got a lot of time for, would be completely off.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of respect for Robert Benzie. He's a pro in every sense of the matter. It's just institutionally, those papers do not have. I really don't think they have their fingers on the pulse of what's happening in this region, people.
Yeah, no, it's just completely off base, completely wrong. And we know, Burlington had its change election 4 years ago, and this election was kind of a snooze fest, but kind of not. There's been some. Well, I mean, it actually brings us to another one of the stories that we kind of feel were important ones for us. And that was the Burlington secrecy story and the reporting by two councillors, or basically the whole council, to the integrity commissioner of the councillor for Ward 4, Shauna Stolte, as she tried to sort of raise awareness of how in-camera meetings were being used. I think, again, I think our coverage of that was important. I think.
Well, we got a lot of response to it of people saying they're very happy that we were able to kind of shine a more critical light on what is going on behind, in camera meetings.
Well, and to when you're being critical of an entity, to try and be as responsible as possible with that story. So it's like, we're not going to, we're going to go to the trouble of looking at the number of sessions that are being held privately, how they compare to the minutes from previous councils, the language that's being used, and it was different. And you can show it statistically that there are more meetings and they're being used in a different way. So I think that kind of thing is again where we can contribute to debate, hopefully in a responsible and positive way. I dare say some on Burlington Council wouldn't agree with that, but maybe some would. But yeah, I mean, and it was the first time that the Marianne Mead Ward's Council, really, and Marianne Mead Ward herself, took any kind of hit In municipal politics, the honeymoon period lasts up to 4 years, because people
Yep.
just aren't paying that close attention. So really, it was, Mary Mead Wall could pretty much do what she liked for her first term because she was still the new kid, and she is someone who had built up, for whatever reason, a very strong, and still controls a very strong personal following. So she will say she got back in very easily, but I still think there was some political cost to her because of that story. She won back easily because there was no one running against her worth the
Worth note.
worth note. And I with all due respect to the people who did run against her, I'm sorry, that's just the case.
Yeah.
And I guess, you had one other story that we covered that I definitely think is one of the ones that we would both point out as being important.
Well, we thought it was important, and something that we were kind of proud of, kind of being honestly, like the only agency kind of steady, focused on it. And that was, of course, the issue of the Halton Catholic School Board pride flag issue. I'll put it there. When we started following it, just because nobody else was, this was a case of the board turning what really should have been a very simple matter of flying the pride flag at HCDSB schools during Pride Month as a show of solidarity and acceptance to the student population who identify on the LGBTQIA spectrum. Of course, being what it was, it turned into something far more than that, a little bit darker, and we took note of it. We said, well, we're just going to shine a light on what's going on here. I know we ruffled some feathers with it. I'll be honest, I'm a little proud of that. I'd rather be punching up than punching down any day of the week with this podcast. I won't shy away from that. But I mean, in the end, I want to. I really don't want to take the credit for this, because I think there was a lot of grassroots students, teachers, and parents who were who really put up the fight and put the pressure on. But I do want to say, like, I felt proud that we were able to kind of shine a spotlight on their efforts and keep that pressure in the limelight. So that ultimately, what happened was the flag is now flying during Pride Month at HCDSB schools. And I'm just proud that we were able to cover that and follow that story all the way through from start to finish, and all the twists and turns that came with it all along. I know a lot of people enjoyed our coverage, and they found it was responsive and influential. And it was kind of one of those things that this wasn't covered by Star or Global Mail outside of a little tidbit on a Saturday paper on the the back page of the local news issue. This was something that we were able to cover in live tweet and whatnot. I was, in the end, I was very proud of what we did and who we talked to and how we covered it. So I put that in a win.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, I think the municipal election from the point of view of the Catholic School Board was quite disappointing in some ways, in that there wasn't more change. However, the two people who certainly we would have picked out as being the most egregiously offensive and dishonest and just absolute disruptive and just in every way calamitous to the business of the school board were Ian Tomasi, who's for some reason his name I struggle with, and Tim O'Brien, and they are both gone. One being voted out and one sort of choosing not to run for re-election and trying his hand at Ward 2 in Burlington and losing by, well, not just
a healthy margin.
Yeah, a very, very, very healthy margin. Basically, he may as well have stayed at home for all the votes he got. And I think that hopefully will tell him exactly how much he is beloved by the people of Burlington. So those two are gone, and that's good. And it it doesn't address some of the remaining problems with the whole Catholic School Board system, with people on that board who were not as egregiously ridiculous as those two gentlemen, but who certainly, I believe, are an embarrassment as elected officials. They're just not quite as embarrassing as they were. So hopefully this board can get on with the business of just doing whatever it is that trustees do, in a less self-aggrandizing, less disruptive, less ridiculous fashion.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
So that instead of tooting our own horn our own horn for the rest of this episode and patting ourselves on the back until we break our arms, we did want to kind of take a look towards the future and what we thought 2023, at least at the onset of 2023, what we thought the go-to story that's going to be on everyone's mind is going to be. And if you've been listening to this podcast for the last month, I'm sure you know what's coming. The greenbelt. More importantly, or more specifically, Doug Ford's decision to carve up 7,400 acres of the greenbelt and basically hand it over to developers for them to do with as they wish. The story is not going away. Our previous episode, we had on Tim Gray from Environmental Defense to talk about their continued pressure to shine a light on what happened. As more and more of the story comes out, it's got the makings of an honest to goodness scandal, like a real bona fide, like shady dealings in the back rooms. Just I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, kind of old school Tammany Hall corruption. And basically, if you don't know what we're talking about, summary is this: the question is how did these developers purchase the exact plot of lands that became open for development at the end of 2022, when they only bought it, a couple weeks before they were opened up, and they bought them for a song, and now they look to be sitting on millions of dollars. Some of these companies took out loans with 20% interest to purchase this land. You don't do that on a gamble or on cross my fingers and I hope for the best. Something fishy went on here. We don't know the dust, but this isn't if these guys picked the right plot of land on a lark, these guys are in the wrong business. They should not be developers.
Well, it's worth remembering. I mean, we spoke today. Well, we didn't speak today. We spoke in our last episode to Tim Gray from Environmental Defense, and he pointed out, as many have done, the repeated promises Doug Ford made that his government wouldn't touch the greenbelt. But then what we also need to remember is that in 2018 there was a video that was released of Doug Ford speaking at a private fundraising event, the kind of event that happens, if people still were allowed to smoke indoors, they would very much be smoke-filled rooms, which developers and corporate interests and people of wherever pay large amounts of money to go and attend. Doug Ford standing up and saying, once we're elected, that greenbelt's going to go away. Those aren't his exact words, but he made it very clear that attacking the greenbelt was what he meant. So what's happening now really is a confirmation of what so many of us feared and believed was the ultimate agenda. And it's like, yep, here it is. Told you so. But the nakedness and the almost complete lack of kind of apparent compunction or embarrassment about what they're doing. I mean, again, like, governments don't do anything. There's no action that a government will ever take unless someone's asking for it, someone's campaigning for it, someone wants it. And usually it takes a combination of what governments call stakeholders, whether that's the voters, whether that's industry, whether that's a particular group of activists, whether that's whatever. Usually you need a lot of those working over many decades to make progress. The wheels of government turn slow. In this case, there is only one group that is making any pressure on the government with regard to the greenbelt and with regard to the many other attacks on the environment or on housing that have happened, and that is the development industry. And it just so happens that those guys are buying land at the right moment, are getting laws overturned that directly affect a specific plot of land in a specific municipality. You can point to that in Burlington happening. That's not greenbelt land. That's just other land that is just, oh, hey, press this. Funny that this guy who's got a many decade long history of donating to the party gets something that he was asking the council for the last 2 decades. Isn't that odd? And I guess the question we were just sort of throwing around before we came on, and it's like, well, actually, this is kind of, I think, kind of almost the angle that you want to look at. It's like, how does this compare with, is this the PC's gas plant scandal?
I think it's worse.
I think it's much worse. It should. So, and the gas plant scandal, I mean, for people who can't think back that far.
Hang on. I want to play a test with our listeners. Listeners, what was the gas plant scandal? And I'm asking this seriously to you. Like, can you right now recall in detail what this criminality was over the gas plant scandal? I'm going to bet that you probably don't. Like right now, if you're thinking, yeah, there's something with some gas plants and they moved it around the province, right? Yeah. But what was the actual crime committed? What was the back, who profited off of that? Who got the big pile of money from moving those?
Who got the suitcase full of used
exactly
notes? And there were no suitcases of used notes.
No
politician certainly made a penny out of it. For those who don't remember, what happened was there were two gas plants that were planned and approved, one of which they'd actually sort of got as far as building some foundations, that were cancelled as the result of public pressure, local public pressure in Oakville. I'm trying to remember where the other one was.
Mississauga,
right? So basically, there was opposition, and the big sort of
it was done during the election, and people said
scandal at the time was like, you're only doing that for votes, which I always think is the most hilarious criticism for any government. You're only doing that for votes. It's like, yeah, that's democracy. You do things for votes. Votes means it's popular. So yeah, I think ultimately the corners were cut. It was done with a timing that was clearly political. I don't think anyone can deny that it was political, but it was also ultimately about doing what the people of Oakville and the people of Mississauga wanted. Gas plants were still built. They were just built in other places. In fact, one gas plant wasn't built because this was back in 2008, and
I don't think it was financially feasible
in power usage. And the other one, I think, went out somewhere near Napanee Way. And there was some additional costs there because Napanee is further away. Basically, you're then in the business of moving power around, which is itself an expensive proposition. You want to have power close to people. But basically, it was a political decision. There was no one got rich out of it. It was an attempt to keep seats, sure, but what's wrong with that in a democracy? As opposed to this, which is literally about money, and which is literally about
somebody got rich. Somebody's getting rich off of this, and it's not you or me, folks. Everything about this has the makings of just a literal backroom deal. Two people of power saying, "Hey, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine." Somebody somewhere said, "Hey, I want, tell me, I want to buy this land. Okay, I'll free it up for you. Okay, date, time, boom. I need to buy it for a song, and now I'm walking away, with hundreds of millions of dollars in profit now once the dust is settled and the final sale is made." This does look, somewhere there is an email chain, there is a phone record. there's something out there. I think we all know it. We all know that it's sitting in somebody's inbox, it's sitting on somebody's phone. There's a phone call, there's a voicemail, there's an email somewhere in this province that is just going to blow this thing wide open, and it's not going to look good for this government. This I'm going to go and predict this year, 2023, may be the year that we declare Doug Ford's government the most corrupt government in the history of Ontario, or at least the most corrupt this century so far.
Yeah, and the irony is that governments aren't, they're all the same. They're all corrupt. These are the kind of phrases that get around. Actually, they're not. In a conventional sense, they're not very good. But if you go and look at retired politicians, they're not living in mansions by and large. Most of them, certainly at the provincial level, of they don't actually get pensions. They get paid well, but not extortionately well. They don't. It's a comfortable salary, but there's no job security, right? You can get fired after 4 years or after 8 years, and it's like, yeah, see you. By and large, our political system is not, if you want to be corrupt and make money, don't become a politician. That's a terrible way to get rich.
I'm the developer bribing the politician.
Well,
I
the
joke.
hilarious thing about Ontario is, like, if you want to buy influence, you can buy it so cheaply in Ontario because the way the donation limits work, it's like, if I donate $500 to a riding association, now $500 is nothing. And we look at the US, or we look at Britain, where millions of pounds or dollars are changing hands, because certainly in the US there's no limit whatsoever. And at $500 will get me a lot of attention from the local MPP, because they're like, oh wow, that's a big donor. $500? Are you kidding me? It's like embarrassingly small amount, really. But I mean, that's our system. Again, no one's getting rich from that, but you can buy influence that cheaply, because you will be noticed if you make a $500 donation to, your local, certainly your local progressive.
I don't think it's that. I'll be honest. I think it's honestly a belief that this business, like the business powers that be, know what's better than all of us, and all the rules and regulations that we have in place to preserve our environment, to preserve our workers' rights, to preserve the places that we live, or to just make sure that we are all informed and educated on what's happening in the province, so that if we do have questions, we can get them answered in a timely and comprehensive manner. This government says, no, forget that. That's too much work. I don't want to have to worry about having to be accountable. I don't want to have to worry about convincing people that my plan is the right plan. I mean, that's truly what a leader does. You might have something that's really unpopular at first, but if you're a good leader, you go to the people and say, this is the situation. I think this is the solution to the problem. This is what I want to do. I need your support. And you win them people over, and they say, okay, I see your argument. I'm on board with you now. A good leader does that. We don't have that in this province. They can't be bothered to coming to us and saying, hey, I think we need to cut into the greenbelt to free up, to build more houses, to bring the cost of houses down. And I mean, right off the bat, all of us we've had people on this podcast who say, well, no, we don't need to do that. We have plenty of space existing to build there. The problem is just telling a developer, well, you save us from this housing crisis, is kind of like telling the wolf, well, you look after the chicken coop. They're gonna, we know that there's no rush for them to build the house or to build affordable houses. There's no rush for them to build $200,000 homes, when they can say, I can sit on that land, and when it becomes an $800,000 home, I put it on the market, and then I hope a bidding war jacks up to $1 million.
All the province has done is poured fuel onto a speculation market, a land speculation market that was already on fire, but which the developers control at every angle. Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with a developer back in 2000 and 2019, and he was complaining, as is completely legitimately his right, about the the public opposition to developments. And he said, I don't care if the public wants to oppose this building, because all it means is that when it finally gets built, I can charge more. That's the quote from a major developer who shall remain nameless. Basically, all the public opposition does is mean I earn more money in the long run, and it's like it's just hilarious, this whole situation, and that nothing the government has done is actually going to help with the genuine housing crisis that we're all facing.
But I think we're at a point now where, again, coming back, the story of 2023 is going to be the slow unraveling of what happened regarding Bill 23 in this government. I don't. There's just nowhere that this narrative ends where we all come around to Doug Ford's point of view and say, "Oh yeah, okay, I see why you did what you did, and when you did it." There's something fishy happened here, folks. And when we already have a good picture. When we just finally start connecting those dots and we see the whole image clearly and in the light of day, I don't think it's going to look well on Doug Ford. And here's the thing. If we find out what happened here and it does not look good, if there was legitimate scandal, corruption happening here, this early in his term, my question is, politically, what can he do? I mean, unless he just wants to start hammering through notwithstanding clause bills in perpetuity to push through legislation that he knows it's going to infringe on people's rights or whatever have you, or just keep pushing through legislation that is wildly unpopular. I don't know, I can't see him. I just don't know where that leaves him in this province. Now, right now, I think he gets away with it because there's no opposition to him at Queen's Park.
Well, I mean, that's the final part of the thing, and it as part of our kind of prediction that this will be a story that doesn't go away, and that kind of defines the next 3.5 years till the next election. That depends very much on the new leader of the NDP, Marit Stiles, and whoever the new leader of the Ontario Liberals should be, doing a far more effective job of opposition than their two predecessors did during the COVID. And, fine, COVID pandemic. I mean, it was an extraordinary time, and I don't think, for whatever reason, that kind of crisis seems to actually help incumbents, despite the manifest incompetence at every turn. I think people just, for whatever reason, but I don't think that's the case now. And going back to the gas plant story, the opposition, again, as is their right and as they were able to do, managed to hang that gas plant story around the neck of the Liberals under two separate premiers over about 6 years at least. It just went on and on and on and on. Even though, I mean, pointing out my own biases here, I mean, during that time, I was a member of the Ontario Liberals. I was a riding president. I had my own, you can claim I'm biased until whatever. It seems to me like if you're claiming that something was corrupt and terrible, you've got to show me who's making money here. Mm-hmm. And I can't see anybody making money out of that. You can claim that it was a waste of public money. The $1 billion number gets thrown around a lot. I could probably pick holes in that number if you wanted me to, but let's say it was $1 billion. This is a government that's blowing $13 billion on a road that nobody wants. This, $1 billion is like pocket change for these guys. And we were all worked up about $1 billion on a couple of gas plants that the public did not want. Now, if the general public was saying, you know what, we do not want green belts, we think there's a better route, we think we need to build on these. If that was what the electorate was saying, that's fine. That's democracy. I mean, I wouldn't like it. Wouldn't mean I thought it was any righter, but that would be democracy in action.
Yeah, but that's what this we did an episode before, and this government does not like democracy. This government does not like.
It doesn't believe in it. It doesn't.
No, it's a barrier to getting what they want done. Consequences be damned. And that I think will be the story of 2023. Ultimately, is that this more and more evidence that this government does not care about the charter. They don't care about the legislation that's there, environmental protections, workers' rights. It's not going to matter. It's going to be a hindrance and a barrier to an agenda that they think serves the province as a whole, but in reality will only serve a very select few. I'm going to say that's it for this year, folks. We're off for the Christmas holidays, and we'll be back sometime in the new year with more of the 905er. Thanks, everyone. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll see you in 2023. Goodbye.